what you need to know to develop your project management skills. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management specialist. I help professionals to become successful project managers. How do I do that in practice? Well, there's of course several ways I can do that, but a lot of times, for example, there's a project manager or there's a PMO and they are struggling with a specific situation, and then I use my expertise, my experience, and my knowledge to help to guide them to a better solution to solve their problem, to increase their value, to get a promotion, to move forward. For example, here, few months ago, I was working with a junior project manager that he was working in the aerospace industry for a big company in Belgium, and they were struggling with his project because the manager of the area or some leaders they were not having good visibility. They were not sure if they could complete it, and there was of course at this stage a lot of discussion saying that the project was delayed or not. The first thing that I did with him, and of course, was analyze the situation that he was and to try to bring clarity. For example, when we started the discussion, I start asking him what's going on there, and he said that my project is going to be delayed there for a couple of months. And I say, okay, why? Explain to me. And then he was start to explain because I have problem with the tooling. Then I go deeper in the discussion, say, okay, what tool? Is it one tool, 5 tools, 10 tools? And it end up in this discussion, we find out that he had more than 100 tools that he had to buy. And when I asked, okay, what's the critical one? Because 100 tools, they are going to have different lead times. And in this discussion, he was not aware of because they did not have a proper WBS. So although they have a high level understanding of the scope, no one cared to check the details and what they had to do there. And of course that brought a lot of issues, and then I guide him and the company in this journey to bring clarity in the scope, making sure that you confirm what needs to be done, that you understand your timeline, you understand your critical path to move forward. So that's one of the cases how I help people, how I help project managers to be more successful, of course, so they can go for the next step, a more complex project or a better position in another organization, or even to get a promotion there to make sure at least they put their project under control and they have good feedback about their projects. Of course, that's one of the examples. There are different ways, but at least I want to have make sure that you understand this in a more concrete way there. So the topic I'm going to talk today, it's a very important one because this is required for a basic understanding and of course for a basic learning how you're going to move forward with your development there. So every time you are talking about developing and to have a good skill to make sure that you are fully in control about a certain thing, so you are capable of doing something. And of course when you are talking about capable, there are different levels which I'm going also to discuss a bit. There are basically three things that you need to be effective in a good habit there. And why I'm talking about habit, because if you are successful in something, it needs to be a habit. That in this case, what I'm pointing out to a habit, that's something that you are going to do it and you can do it with consistency. Because of course you can do it something at once and you are lucky, but if you can consistently repeat and have good results, and then we are talking about to be successful there. And I'm gonna talk about consistent. I'm not talking about being perfect. So at some points, of course, you're going to have variation in your performance, but in average, you are consistent. In average, you have a good performance there, which will lead you to a promotion, a better position, to be recognized, to further develop your skills. So we are looking for consistent here in your habits here, and of course, why your habits? Because everything I love this quote. If you're following me by now, you know that I love quotes. That every single qualification for success is acquired through a habit, because something is, for example, if you are going to read one book, reading one book in your life might not make a big difference there. Of course there are some books that they have the power to pivot where you're going there, but only one book by itself hardly will make an effect in your entire life. Well, if you have a consistent habit of reading it, and if you do that in the long term, and you continue to read, you continue to learn, that will make a difference in your life because you're acquiring new knowledge, you're having new ideas, you are making different connections in your brain. So the habit will bring you consistent, and the consistent that's also in the long term they are going to accumulate and are going to bring you results. And what do you need to develop so this competence there? That's to be competent in something and to make sure that this competence turns into a habit there. Basically, you need three things there, and I'm going to explain to you one by one. You need to have the desire. You need to want to do something, and the desire and the want to do something is fully connected with your mindset. You need to have the knowledge. You need to know what to do and why you're doing that. That's something it's important. And you need to have skill. And of course, those things they are developed in different ways. Something I can tell you right away, if you are looking to have start to have fast development there, the easiest thing that you can do there is changing your desire, your mindset. Why? Because usually this with the right perspective you can make this in a fraction of seconds. So this is a very important step because sometimes even if you have the knowledge, if you have the skill, but you don't want to do that, that does not work. So your mindset, it's how everything is going to start there. And of course, that's why, as part of the development programs I have and when I do mentoring, one of the first things that we start talk about and one of the first approach that we have there is focusing a bit on the mindset that you have there to make sure that you can identify if you have limiting beliefs and if you're not like it's not a matter if you have, but which are your limiting beliefs. Everyone has limiting beliefs, including you and me. So that's an important step to identify there. And we start work on your mindset. Why? Because if you start to develop the right mindset, then you are going to take the action. Then you can start to develop your knowledge. How you are going to develop your knowledge? Well, there's different ways. You can read a book. You can watch a class. Or there's you can learn with other people. Someone can explain something to you. So there's different ways where you can build on your knowledge. And of course, as I mentioned, the mindset is much it can be faster to change. Knowledge, depending on the type of topic that you want to develop, a broad knowledge on that might take months or years. And for example, if you see a doctor there, to be a doctor, they study for years, the years of practice and continuous study to develop their knowledge there. And that usually goes for any type of professional. Even if you tell me I'm an entrepreneur, yes, you need to continue to develop your knowledge there. You need to continue to study. You need to continue to develop yourself. And when I'm talking about knowledge, it's also very important that I mention that knowledge it's not only tied up to doing a formal education, to doing another degree or something like that, but can be to do other part or to have different types of training, to read different types of books, to have contact with different people, and you can learn in that way. And then you have the other one. Then it's of course your skills. And what's a skill, for example? If you are trying to play a guitar, you can learn everything about the songs, to read a partiture, or to read how the songs are read. I'm not sure if I'm saying the right word in English. And anyway, I do not know how to play guitar, so apologize if I'm saying something that does not make sense. But you can acquire the musical knowledge there, but playing is something different. You can have all the knowledge that you want about something, all the theoretical knowledge that you want, but for developing a skill, it's something different. And of course, how to develop and master a skill can be different. It's practice that, of course, that you need there, and to reach a point that you master something, that you are really a pro in something. It can take different amount of time. There's a book that I think the name of the book it's Outliers, if I remember well, where he discussed the number of hours that someone needs to master a specific skill, and he says that of course this number in average goes to around 10,000 hours. And of course, this does not mean that people that cannot do it faster cannot do it shorter. But 10,000 hours, if you put in average, that would be equivalent of around 10 years to be a full master in something. And again, does not mean that just because you put a lot of hours in something, if you're not learning and looking for something for continuous improvement, that might be that you're never going to get to the master. So that's another point why continuous improvement is connected with your desire. You want to do something, you want to learn something. It's also connected with your growth mindset, which is very important for you to develop in your own career. Because I see a lot of people that they say, I have been doing that for 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, or even 30 years. Yeah, but here's the thing. If you're not learning through this period, meaning that you're not improving yourself, you're just repeating exactly the same thing, so you're not moving forward to master something, because you might do something a certain level, and if you continue to do something in this level, you're not stepping up the ladder of knowledge, the ladder of skill, then you are going to continue in exactly the same level. That does not mean just because you have been doing exactly the same thing for 20 years, you master a specific competence there. So when you talk about skill, is if you take off course, and to be fair, if you talk about 10,000 hours, 10 years, sometimes you can do it faster if you have the right mindset. Anyway, you're going to need to put the effort there, and this is kind of a rule of thumb that the author suggests, which in practice, more or less, you see it as a fair one. Of course, some people can master a specific skill faster, some people take longer. In average, it's a good notion to do, and that depends, of course, if you have how much you are investing on your skills, your mentor, how much you are practicing. It depends, of course, because that the nice thing on talking about 10,000 hours, it's like if you do half an hour per day, that will take much longer than 10 years. If you do 10 hours per day, that of course will go a bit faster. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about skills. And why developing these skills is so important. And as you might know, and I hope you know by now, I'm also a project management trainer, and I have my own development program, but I also do training, for example, for the Benelux and Nordics team in the company I'm working on. Benelux is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and all the Nordic countries there. And in some of those trainings, I noticed that some people do not understand that learning something, it's not about only the passive learning that you can do. For example, when I'm teaching, and that happens in a case very recently, and I talk about a WBS. WBS, if you do not know that, I explain. WBS, it stands for Work Breakdown Structure. It's a tool that helps you to organize the scope of your project, and also to make sure that you can have good visibility, and it helps you in a lot of stuff to build a timeline, in communication, gain clarity, and everything else. And when I explained of the WBS, and of course people understood it, and it was nice. And then someone told me, "Yeah, when you explain everything, I think I know everything. I learn very fast, but when I try to do something, I struggle. When I try to go for the exercise, and of course that's why it's important to have exercise in a training, and to have cases in a training. And then I say, yeah, but that's what's expected, right? Because you're not going to be able to just watch something, even though if you're paying attention, and you're going to say in the end, say, ah, now I know everything. No, that's why you need to exercise it. Because understanding something in a certain level in your mind is very different from executing something in practice. And another example that I can give you, for example, if you read a book on how to swim, and you can read the book, you can watch a movie teaching you how to swim, but until the point that you enter in the swimming pool, you're not going to start to really developing your skill unless you give it a try. Of course, if you're learning how to swim, you're not going to jump in the North Sea and say, now I know how to swim. You started to swim in a pool where it's safe, because then you start to develop your skills until to a point, if you want it, of course. I have not my favorite thing, would for sure not one of my dreams to swim in the North Sea, but if you want that, then at some point you can swim in the North Sea. But it's very important, so you start in a safe environment there, and you can start develop your skills until you're up to a certain type of challenge. And that's exactly the same thing that this person was trying to do. She saw all the books, she saw a video, or she saw a live training and about how to swim, and and then I say, now go and swim. Then say, but now I'm struggling. Yes, and that's exactly the point. Because we are going to have, you can have some type of struggle, but then that means that you also start to develop your skills. And that's what a lot of people they don't understand. Because a lot of people they enroll in a training or even in my development program, and they think that they are going to, if they watch all the content, suddenly they are very capable project managers. And not that the content will not help you, it will for sure. The content will help you, but doing it's different. And that's of course why I say that in my development program it's like a 1 year program, when I have this exercise and I ask people to engage. Because if you engage also on this, and then with question ask, I can guide people through the solution of what they're doing there. So what I'm doing there is guiding the skill development. And of course, in some types of training, I also can do that. If depending on the type of training, it gets more difficult because although they do the exercise after the training, I don't have more contact with them, and then that's a difference. But in a 1 year program, that's something that I can do. But the only way I can do that, and the only way that you can do that, if you start to develop your skills there. So this is a very important part of your skill development. And if you really want to develop a competence to a level that you are proficient in something, you always need to take care of those three pillars here. You need to take care of your desire. Again, this is the fastest one that you can change. You need to continue to develop your knowledge, and you need to continue to develop your skills with practice, with exercise, and hopefully executing a project management activity. And why I'm saying that, because I see a lot of people struggling, and some people they struggle because they acquire a piece of knowledge there through a training, through a certification, via master or whatever, and suddenly they say, I already know everything in theory, but they've never applied that. And at some point, they get to a level that they put themselves in a pedestal because they think they know everything. So that starts to break the right mindset that you should continue to learn. And because you think you already know everything, that you don't have any reason to practice your skills. So that's a big disfavor that you are doing for yourself, that you are doing for your own career. Because if you look in the different stages of learning, more you do something, more you are going to learn something. Of course, better you're going to get. But I mentioned the stages of learning. Let me just explain that to you because this is very important to understand, of course, how you're going to connect to develop your competence learn. Because you have 5 stages of learning. The first stage, you are in the stage that you just don't know that you don't know. So it's ignorance, basically ignorance, not that you, not in a bad way, but you just don't know it. If you ask me what's the capital of, I don't know, a place, different, a very different country in Asia, I might not know it, and that's it. I just don't, and it's not anything bad. And for some stuff, you just don't know that exists. So you don't know that you don't know. So at this point, it's also hard to learn. Because if you don't even know, if you're not even aware that something like that exists, you cannot understand how it works. So the first step, then the second step that you need in these learning stages, it's understand that you don't know. So you are at the point that you say, I know that I don't know something. For example, if you ask me how to code something, I know that I don't know how to code. So that's a good place to be. If you ask me a very strange language, there I don't even know that exists. So so that's a different level of competence there. So it's very important that you also keep progressing those competence levels there. If you get to the point that you know that you don't know, but you want to learn, then it's a very good, then you start to be in a very interesting place. because then you can start to work. If you already want to learn, that means that you at least part of your mindset is already good. Then you can start to acquire your knowledge, then to start to acquire your skills. Then you get to a point that you know how to do something, but you have to concentrate to do something like that. For example, if in the case of the example that I give about the WBS, the person say, I learn about a WBS, I did the exercise about the WBS, might not be very straightforward as if I have been doing that for years, but if you pay attention, if you think about it, you can do the task. That's the third stage of learning. Then at some point you start to work, you start to gain experience, and you start to doing that much more and more and more. Then you get to a point that's called then you can do it very easily, sorry, and you can do this as a part of your habits. You're not going to think about how to create a WBS. You get there and you start to work on that, and you come up with a WBS. And then this is the start of a level that you start to really master something there. So this is a level that's important. And of course, you can even go for the next step. That's really teaching someone and explaining to someone how to do that, because then that's the most that you can learn about something. And I can tell you that I have been doing project management. I have been working with project management since 2009. And one of the things I like a lot about that's why one of the reasons I create the entire PM project management craft, it's because even though for some items I think I could do easily, explaining to someone, it helps you to learn so much. It helps you to develop yourself so much that you keep enjoying, you keep having fun in something. But why I'm explaining about the stages of learning? Because it's very important that you don't get stuck in those different levels here. For example, for the people that they get stuck in this, they do this some type of training, then they tell me I know everything. That that means that you basically you move back to the step that you don't know. So at some point you say I want to learn project management because I don't know it. And instead of keeping yourself humble, keeping the growth mindset that is really required to keep developing yourself, developing your career, yourself as a human being, and so on, and you go back to this point and say, "Yeah, I already know everything," then you just don't know what you don't know. And likely that's the worst place to be. That's a big blind spot that sooner or later can hit you in your face on your career and everything else, and that's going to be a problem. But of course, so how do you solve this to avoid that you go back to this point that I don't know? Well, you can ask for feedback, you can get a mentor, and that's why you see in the Project Management Institute Pulse of Profession of 2024, one of the enablers that pops up very common, that the skill development enabler that pops up very common in companies they are in the top level of project management, is coaching and mentoring. Why? Because with a coach and a mentor, you can get it's a person that can kind of keep you honest and point it out that what you don't know there. And that's a beautiful thing. Why? Because once you realize that you don't know, you start to be able to move again in the stages of learning. And then you start to run this this cycle again here. You start to run those pillars again. So a good mentor there will help you partially also with your mindset. Why? Because every time that you think that you are get to a point that you know everything, this mentor will point out something that you don't know. That then, if it's something a new skill that you don't know or something a blind spot that you have, you can keep developing yourself. And I can tell you that because I've seen that in a lot of different project managers. For example, a very common blind spot that you find in project managers, they don't know finance. And you might say, yeah, but I do not work with finance. Why do I need to learn finance? That's very simple because the ultimate goal of every project is to deliver value. And if you ask, what's the most common way companies to measure value? It's via a business case. And in a business case, what do you have there? Finance. So you get there, the project manager, they do not understand what's a gross margin, what's operating margin. They do not understand what's OPEX, what's CAPEX. They do not understand what's an NPV, how it's calculated, how the NPV is influenced by the development cost. And they forget about this part. But what's the problem? In the end of the project, the company find out that the business case it's not what they wanted, or I've seen business case ending up in a very bad situation. Sometimes the company is losing money, and if the company is losing money, but it's for a new product, and depending on the type of business that you are working on, the company even have a contract signed confirming that they are going to supply this product for the next 10 years. That means the company is going to lose money for 10 years because bad project management skills. Not only that, of course, you can talk about the procedures of the company, poor governance, and all those kind of stuff, which is also true. But they need to go together. If you have a company with the project managers thinking that they don't need to know finance because the business case is not so important, likely the culture and the government also will not be a good one. That's also will lead for this kind of problem. So understanding those blind spots that you have here to continue your learning journey, to continue to develop yourself, to grow in your career, they are quite important. And just for the sake of repeating again, understanding the first step that you can take here, it's very important. That's know that you don't know, because then you get out. Because in the first stage here, you are stuck because you have no clue there. But once you start to move, then you have a chance to progress there. And then if you are going to be consistent, then if you continue to work your mindset, if you continue to work your knowledge, if you continue to work your skills, then you can do something and you can start to be consistent in the long term, then you're going to get the results that you want. But if you stop and if you get stuck in this continue that you don't know, that's very uh, that's you are not going to progress in your career. And I see a lot of people that because they do a training, so at some point they come back to this level, and because a lot of people say that I already know this, but do you really know this? And I'm really asking that, and you should really ask yourself that. And if you are wondering, you when I say you, it's everyone, including myself, and I do that often when I see people thinking about to say, do I really know this? Then I start to think back. Maybe sometimes I even start, okay, let me check it out to see if what I have in my mind is matching the reality there. But this is a very important thing that you know. If you find yourself saying that I already know this, you should have a red alert in your mind say, bah, stop it, pay attention, what's going on here? It might be the case that you say, I already know this, but might be the case that you are also being kind of you're not going to or if I say it very blandly, you can see a lot of times it's arrogance. Why I'm saying that? Because I talk with a lot of people. If someone that has never worked with a project manager in their life, they do a 10-hour training, they come to me and tell me that they already know everything about project management. Yes, that's arrogance. If I want to put this in a more nice way, it's maybe you're fooling yourself, or maybe it's a blind spot. So avoid that trap in your career. Understand those stages of learning here. Understand how you need to, how you can tackle it, and whatever stage of learning that you have here from two, three, four, or five, they're good. The only thing that you really need to avoid that you get stuck in the first one because then you cannot do anything. How you how you can also avoid that? Well, I already mentioned a few things, but if you continue to work on your mindset, understanding that you continually needs to learn, meaning you need to be exposed for different type of knowledge for different types of situations. Sometimes it's nice to go for like for a conference, to go for an event where they're going to talk about project management. If you say and I see sometimes people saying, yeah, but it's not so easy where I am. Sometimes I don't have the money, I don't have the time. Well, from time to time I do free events, also with the intent of bringing awareness there. And I do, of course, free content, and I have Q&A box on Instagram, and a lot of stuff to interact with people. Why? Because I want to make sure that I don't. If I have the chance, I want to make sure that no one gets stuck in the stage number one. But of course, doing that myself, more people I talk with, more I'm putting myself in check, and more I'm making sure that myself I'm not getting stuck in the stage number one. So this is very important to your career. And if you and just to wrap up here, so if you want to fully develop your competence there to a level that you can become master something, you need to invest here in your desire, your want to do that. That's your mindset. You need to continue to develop your knowledge, and you need to continue to develop your skills. Rule of thumb to master something can be 10,000 hours. Of course, some people can do it faster, or can some people take longer, depending on the kind of effort and the kind of help and the kind of mindset they have. But that's in general. Be aware of the 5 stages of learning, and make sure that you don't get stuck in the stage number one, that you don't know. Because if you're in this stage, uh, you are not, then there's not much that you can do there. Don't forget again to like this content, because that shows me the value that is. Share with other people because they also can understand how they can develop their project management skills, how they can develop their career. If you have questions, feel free to leave your question here in the comments. Don't forget to follow me on YouTube, but also on Instagram. On Instagram, I share daily content that's easier to digest, but also there's a Q&A box that you can ask all the kind of questions, and you can interact to make sure that you are not stuck on the stage number one. Thank you, and I see